So I'm going to be talking about employees potentially pulling sickies. So there's two key sort of signs around, say, trying to work out whether somebody's pulling a sickie or not. Now, what you might find is that there's potentially a bit of a trend or a pattern to, say, the sickness. They usually tend to be short-term sicknesses. There might be, say, a Monday or a Friday. Or you might also find that, say, they correlate with maybe key events, you know, say big football matches, derby days, or another really common one is possibly where somebody's had a holiday previously declined and then they just so happen to be off sick. Now, the other issue that you can get is around social media. So it could be as well maybe things that people are posting on social media. So in order to try and get to the bottom of it, what we'd usually recommend that you do is that you'd hold return to work meetings with your staff. I think they're a really good thing to do. Don't have to take an awful long time to do them. And plus it means that you've got a paper trail for if anything happens. So if you do end up taking any potential, say, disciplinary action, then it's something that you can possibly utilise as part of that. Just strengthens your position on it. So starting off with, you do a return to work and they're usually covering things like how are you feeling, what symptoms were you experiencing, did you see your GP? And a key one is there anything particularly that we can do for you to support you now that you're back in work? And are you essentially fit to be back in work? And as part of that meeting, you can use it as an opportunity to talk to them about, you know, well, we just so happen to notice this particular trend, you know, so we're not doing it in sort of as an accusation, or we really don't want to do it as like to feel like, say, there's an interrogation type tone to it. So that we're just trying to get to the bottom to establish the facts. Then what we do is we'd have then notes from, say, that meeting, and if it's not looking like it's all adding up and it's looking a bit suspicious, then you've potentially got a better base to move on for if you're considering disciplinary action. Now, the other thing is by going through it in that approach, it means by asking in-depth questions of somebody, you're making it harder for somebody to lie to you. And it just means then that, you know, you can really treat somebody fairly. And if you do go through a disciplinary process, it's then a fair process that you're undertaking. So the other possible area you might get is around social media. So this is quite a popular area for us, where we get a lot of calls where generally it's Facebook. Sometimes, you know, you might get things like Twitter, but it's mainly Facebook, where somebody's been out. They've had a night out and then they've been posting online that they've been off out for a night out when they've been off sick. So again, to use a return to work meeting, wait till they come back in, go through that with them, and then you talk through, you know, again, how are you feeling, all those same sort of questions, so you can establish what's going on. And then you can ask them about, say, the particular Facebook entry. Now with those ones, it's really important that as soon as it comes to light that you've got a Facebook entry, that you try and get a screenshot of the evidence, because otherwise they could get wind of it and then they delete it, and then it makes it harder for you to potentially use it as any evidence. You talk to them about, say, what you've seen and so on, and then it gives you again an opportunity to kind of establish, well, did they actually pull a sickie, or was it a genuine sickness, and, you know, and they happened to have a night out and actually there wasn't anything untoward about it. The other thing as well with say the things with, if you've got somebody who's possibly going out, let's just say, for example, they've got depression. That's quite a big issue in terms of popular sickness reasons these days. And, you know, somebody might well then go for, say, a day out, they might do something fun and they post something on social media. Now, as an employer, you're going to look at that and think that's really taking the mick. You know, the colleagues might think that, you know, and it's just not fair because we're covering their work. The reason why you wouldn't go in, and kind of interrogate somebody as such about something like that is because, it might actually be reasonable what they're doing. So if they're depressed, if they're anxious, it might be part of their GP's advice to, go out, get yourself out, have a nice time, try and relax a bit, and then you're in a better space to get back into work, and part of their recovery. So if you were to then take disciplinary action on that, that might not be seen as fair. So it's just going about it in a reasonable way. The other scenario you might get is that somebody goes out and maybe they've been seen at the gym. Now, again, depending on the reason why they're off work, that might be reasonable, might be completely unreasonable. You could get somebody who's maybe had a musculoskeletal injury, and it's part of their rehabilitation to be doing exercise, in the gym. And you see, that's something that you'd approach as part of the fact-finding meeting to just try and get to the bottom of. Again, take good notes, and then it just puts you in a better position to go through a fair procedure if they haven't been doing something reasonable. I think the other scenario you might get really is around just if somebody's, having nights out, clearly drinking, and when they should have been in work. That's the big one that, I think does come up a lot. And I think if you go through that as part of your return to work meeting, you could possibly use that as part of your overall investigation, and that might then result in say, disciplinary action. That's kind of just an overview of some typical scenarios that you might get with sickness absence and generally where people are pulling sickies. So I think it's probably best that if you are a citation client, that you just give us a ring, and then if you have a paper trail on something, it makes it far easier for us to go through all your options available. If you're not a citation client, then there is a number that you can get in touch with us so that we can talk through, say, your options if that's something that's of interest.